Hey guys, it's Kelly. Hey, I wanted to share some a card design that I did and some tips and tricks in the making of this card in the background. And we're just going to dive right in. So there it is. Take your ink cubes and just slap it on your paper. Don't be scared. Just do it. So I wound up, this is a 8.5 by 3.5 panel for a mini slimline card. I did cut it down to 8.25 by 3.25. But I inked it really quickly with my distress ink in Mermaid Lagoon because I do love that color, and I loved how it turned out. And all of the nooks and crannies in the die cut that I used, it wound up highlighting it perfectly. And I just used a scrap sheet of paper to sop up all the leftover ink on the side after I splat some water on it. And I will use that in my art journal. And I thought that was so cool. I was like, gosh, I really love how that turns out. I want to have another panel ready. So after I dried it, I decided I was going to do it again. So that is the die cut that I use right there. I just got that on Amazon. It cuts it out, and then it also just makes those indentions in the pattern, and it really highlights the inks, and I really like that. And I hit it pretty hard on the outside edges with the ink pad so that it picks it up on the edges and frames it in. And I like how that looks. But again, like I said, you can use an embossing an embossing folder, anything that would add some texture to the paper, and you can highlight it, and this would work out for that too. But this just happens to be the pattern that I used. So, and I really like it. I really like how busy that background looks. So, and that's the same sheet of paper that I used the last time, and I'm going to put another layer of color on it, and now it's a little bit darker, and I love that little piece. So I'm going to use that in my art journal. And again, if you think about it, if you got all your inks out and your embossing folders or your die cuts or your dies, and you're going to make some panels, you might as well make several of them and always have them ready for your crafting time in all kinds of different colors. So I like to do things in batches. It's more efficient. So that might make sense to do it that way. So I committed to myself to use some of the old stamps that I haven't really been using very much. And I got that from the Simon Says card kit. It's been a while. And then I had some circle dies. One of them has some stitching on it and one of them does not. And I love how vibrant that color is, Mermaid Lagoon. It's such a pretty color. And when I have a really vibrant color that pops in the background, I do like to have black and white on there. I just think that it contrasts really nice. So I used 110-pound Nina cardstock in the white and then some 110-pound black cardstock. Black was for the background matte, and then the white was for the sentiment. So, and I just ran that through my die cutting machine, and that would be the design and the focal point. And the black and white with that really pop of color, bright color, and the pattern that's in the background, super easy design, and it's easy to duplicate. So that stamp set I think is called Brushed Flowers. You can go to Simon Says Stamps and get it, and to get that if you'd like it. I don't work for Simon Says Stamps. They don't send me anything for free. I purchase everything that I use, and I like how they run their show. So I like to kind of promote things that if I'm going to purchase it, I might as well share with you guys. So I used my embossing buddy there. It's just my anti-static tool. And I planned on embossing this. I had a very good plan. As you can see, my embossing powder is out. It's just clear embossing powder. But I made a boo-boo, and I'm not afraid to say that it's not the first time this has happened. So I stamped it using my block, trying to avoid my inking platform or my stamping platform. And I almost forgot that I needed to emboss it. I started putting my stamp back and started getting all ready to move on. And oh my gosh, I barely made it in time. So, and as you might know, you only have a small window of time before the ink dries to have it attach the embossing powder. So this has happened to me before, and then I've blown all the powder off. So if that happens to you, you have to heat up your heat tool anyway. So just hit it on the back of it first, get it to start melting there so that it doesn't all blow away when you take your heat tool to it to get it to melt. So that is a tip or a trick that you might not be aware of. It happens to me. I know it happens to others. Also use clear embossing clear embossing powder for all of your embossing. You don't need to spend the extra money on all the different colors that are out there. You can lean on your inks, and the VersaFine and the wetter the ink, the better. So if you want pink, then you use pink ink, and you just use your clear embossing powder, and lo and behold, you have a pink embossed sentiment. I know I've shared this in other videos, but if you didn't see those, you wouldn't know. So that is a trick. Definitely will save you time and money for sure. So these ink pads are the Simon Says stamp positively saturated. Really like them, and they're exactly that. They are saturated, and they've got a lot of ink on it. But when you use this ink on the silicone stamps, you are gonna, using the stamping positioning tool like a Misty is definitely recommended if you want a crisp, perfect impression. This is not a crisp, perfect design. It has imperfections in it, and that's the character of it, and I like it. So I had no problem using my blocks, and I don't use these hardly at all. I always lean on either the Tim Holtz stamping platform or my Misty. I don't need to do that with this one because, again, the flowers themselves are just brushed. They're imperfect the way that they are, and that goes with the design very, very well. But yeah, if you want a perfect impression, definitely using the Misty. And I do use that for some of the copies because, as you saw, I made 2 panels, so I need more flowers. So I kept it all in here so you can see, doing it with the block is perfectly fine. But if you want to use your stamp positioner, you can do it too. And if it just means you're just going to have more ink and a little bit more of a crisp result. But sometimes that's not what you want. So the flower centers are just a little blobs there on your stamp block. So doing it in black, I was perfectly fine with, and it's the vibrant colors are being contrasted with the black ink, and I really like how that looks. Hope you guys do too. Didn't need to do any fancy, stamping or get anything special out. Didn't want a whole bunch of bling on here. The design is simple and easy to replicate. I only made 2, but I will probably go and make full sets of cards like this to give as gifts. So I would give a gift and it would be like 6 or 10 cards inside of it so that whoever the recipient is, they can actually have a set of cards to send that are handmade for all kinds of different occasions. So I think that's an awesome gift to give somebody. So yeah, that's an idea because this isn't hard to do at all. Just you would stamp in batches and then you can create in batches. And then you at least have that feeling of accomplishment too. So something to think about. And I stamped the sentiment off to the right in my circle, the focal point, because I knew I wanted to hug the sentiment with the flowers. And since I have 2 cards, I obviously need to stamp more. So I left this in here to show you guys the difference between the block stamp, which is imperfect, and the Misty stamp, which is stamped multiple times. They are both perfectly fine. It's whatever your preference is. And I wind up using all of them. And if I didn't bring it up, you probably wouldn't even notice the difference. But it's good to see. Also, there's a boo-boo in here that I created a new color out of these 2 colors, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and I wish I could buy that color on the regular. It's so pretty. So the rose and the ocean color, that's the name of those colors in the positively saturated line for Simon Says stamp. If you stamp the pink over the ocean, you'll see it. It's the most perfect purple color ever. It's so pretty. So, and I wish again, like I said, I wish I could duplicate it, but I actually wound up, it's a happy accident. I contaminated my ink pad for rose with this new magical color. And then I only get a few times of using it before the rest of the ink kind of bleeds through. But you can't really tell the difference when you see them you can't really tell the difference until you see them side by side. So for this one, I stamped that pink one several times. So, and if you look at it, you're like, well, yeah, one is a little bit darker than the other. But it definitely, I don't know, it's just a personal preference. If your design is imperfect, then why keep trying for the perfect impression? It just doesn't make sense. So here's the boo-boo. Whoops. I inked it up, moved it up, and then lost my track and wrong flower. And that's a really, really pretty purple, but I cleaned it away because I was like, oh, darn it. Nope, that wasn't what I needed. I didn't want to stamp it out because although that's a pretty purple, that's not the color I want. But the color that I fell in love with was the one that's on the middle flower there. It is the pinkish burgundy kind of, I don't even know. It's like a unique, gorgeous, gorgeous, rich color that is stuck between burgundy and purple. It's so beautiful, so pretty. And I wish I could just buy an ink pad with that color. It's so pretty. I'm sure I could recreate it if I really wanted to, but at least I'd get close. But there it is. I know you can't really see the difference, but I'll tell you, there's a difference. There's definitely a difference. So yeah, that is that's a table hockey tool that I use to have even pressure on my stamps. I had that question a couple times, so I wanted to make sure I share that with you guys. It just helps to make an even impression, helps your wrists, you know, if your wrists are bugging you. Some of us have some problems with arthritis. I'm blessed that I don't have that, you know, quote unquote yet. Who knows? Who knows? But it just helps me to add even pressure in a circular motion across there, and I like how that impression works better. And then that is a stamp chamois that I got. I just purchased a smaller version of the Sham Wow, like the original chamois back in the day when that was so popular. And just, you know, you can cut it to size if you want, but I'm really enjoying having that. I put that in my video last time and asked for input on the stamp chamois. Is it really worth it? You know, do you like it? And I got some really good feedback. So I decided to buy the one from Amazon, and it came in a 2-pack, I think. And it's really nice. I like having it in my craft room. You do have to get it wet for it to work. But you know, it dries pretty quick too. So if it dries, I don't have a sink in my craft room, but I do have always a water bottle or a spray bottle. So if I just spray it with the water, it's good enough to help me clean my stamps off super quick. So I'm enjoying having that in my craft room now. So thanks again, guys, for the feedback that you gave me on that, for those that did. Always appreciate that. So yeah, so now I've got 6 flowers, so I've got sets of 3. So now I can do, you know, the front of the cards, and then I can also do the inside of the cards. But I wanted to show you guys the difference between, you know, stamping it, double stamping it. It's the design of the flower. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. But now I'm going to glue down my panel for the first card. And that is, I'm using my Barely Art glue. That paper is warping because it's really thin. It's only 90-pound paper. My card base is 110 pounds, really heavy. And that works really well. But if I put 110 pound on top of that card, it might be a little bit too bulky for the mailing, and these will definitely be mailed. So I just went with it. And it works. It works well. And then on the outside, it's again, the design is super simple. Oh, by the way, I just used my brayer real quick just to get an even adherent, just to stick it down evenly with no bubbles. So then the grid line in my pattern works great. You know, just kind of 4 from the top, 4 from the bottom, and, you know, 1/4 from the edge, and it works out great just to center it. Super simple design, like I said, easy to replicate and easy to make in bulk. And if you don't want to stamp flowers in color, you know, like I did, I mean, I'm sure you might have just other kind of flowers that are ready to go. Just glue them down and move on. So whatever works for you. And I didn't pop it up or anything. I didn't think that it needed a whole bunch of dimension. I only popped up on some foam tape the pink flower in the middle. That was really the only dimension I wanted on this. The paper's really thick, so it's got its own thing happening there too. So there was no need to make it, you know, more thick. It just makes it more difficult to mail it. Just a little bit of glue in the center. Left the options in case I wanted to put something else behind it, but it's just force of habit there. I didn't. It wasn't worth putting anything behind it because less is more. Definitely in this design. Just a little bit of foam tape, and I do like to put my Barely Art glue still, even though it will stick fine without the glue. I do like the little bit of wiggle room that I have when I want to move it around a little bit, and good thing because I did have to kind of wiggle it a little bit on the design, so it works out. And yeah, you're probably going to hear my husband's phone, but that's all right. So yeah, hugging the sentiment, and there it is. That is your big, you know, focal point. No reason to do anything more to it other than these little drew droplet things, dew droplets. I love putting those on my cards. They do add some bulk to the card, but not too much to where it's annoying. There is one of them in there that's really, really big, and it's just too much for this design. But just putting 3 in the center. I didn't want to make it busier on the outside because the pattern is busy enough. So I just put 3 little pieces in there. It's not a sequence. It might be hard to see in the video. It's just a little dewdrop, kind of like a half pearl is what it kind of looks like, but it's clear. It's the perfect amount of accessory, it's perfect amount without getting all sparkly and blingy. Sparkly and blingy just didn't go with this one. A little bit of glitter from Wink of Stella to highlight the flowers is as far as I was willing to go, and I do that. But like, I'm not going to put stickles on this. Will it work? Yeah, it probably would. You could do the centers with it, whatever you want to do. But I was just feeling that less was more with this design. Thought that it clean and simple, because the background doesn't look clean at all. It's very busy. So yeah. And then moving on to the inside after I put my Wink of Stella on there. I get lots of questions, and I see lots of questions on videos that I watch too, that people say, and I'm on a couple Facebook groups that I'm so grateful to be part of, because we have such a great, caring community that we're part of in the card making and art journaling community. Everybody's so kind and just a great group of people. But I see a lot of questions about, what do you do on the inside of your card? And just kind of mirror what you did on the outside. Just, let it extend into the inside of the card. If that's just a little, 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch piece of designer paper that you used on the front, that would be enough. You could stamp the inside. You could put stickers on the inside, whatever you'd like, or just leave the darn thing blank so you could just write a story in there if you want. But it's whatever you want. Just because, you go to the store and you buy cards and there's a design that we're used to seeing, it doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Put pockets on the inside if you want. Fill it with confetti if you want. Whatever you decide. But overthinking what to do in the inside, that's the very private part of the card. That's the message that's for your recipient. So less would be more, I would think. But to have it complement the front of the card and make it feel like it flows from the outside to the inside would make sense to me. And that's what I try to do in this design. Again, super simple. It's the same flower stamps, the same color palette. I didn't complicate it, do anything different, or add different kind of flowers, because that would just make it too much. That would take away from the focus of it, which the focus should be what the sentiment is and what I write inside. In my opinion, again, that's a handmade card is beautiful, but at the end of the day, what message did you write? That's really where the meat and potatoes are of it, in my opinion, again. So yeah, using my blocks, sticking to my commitment that I made to myself. Just use your blocks, because I never use them. I rarely use them. I always bring out the Misty tool and I coordinate it to where if it doesn't fit, I find a way for it to fit, when all I had to do is put the stamp on the block and just risk it and go for it. And maybe it won't be straight. That's the only thing. I'm like, I don't want to ruin it because it won't be straight. Then I'll just stamp it again. I overthink things too. So yeah, I'm just putting my centers in my flowers. I love the black and white contrast with the bright colors. It always seems to work well. And then from that same stamp set, I'm just going to say, all right, if you're the best, what'd you do? Well, thank you for everything. Makes sense, right? So it turns out being a thank you card. And again, staying true to my stamp block. So here's the thing. This is why I always shy away from using the blocks. Even though I have a grid on the block and a grid on my table, how did I do it? It's still freaking crooked. And I looked at it and it looked fine when I looked at it. And then while I'm looking at the video and stamping it, I'm like, oh my God, it is just a hair off. And, I keep saying the imperfection of this card is what makes it cool. However, the sentiment can't be crooked. I'm not okay with it. I tried to be okay with it. I dried it and even thumbs up it and said, you know what? I'm just going to let go, let it be. It's a little crooked. It'll be all right. It's beautiful. Just let it happen. Moving on. Nope, I couldn't handle it. I just could not handle that it was a little crooked. So I wound up just cutting the circle dies and mirrored what was on the front. And ironically, I like this better. So happy accident. My attempt to fix a boo-boo winds up, I wish I would have done that from the start anyway. So yeah, never give up. Make a boo-boo, cover it, and who knows, you'll probably wind up loving what you did on the second go round. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share, and hit the notification bell. And I'll have a lot more to come. Thanks again.